Revolution Radio proudly presents, live from the heart of the Blue Ridge, Roanoke, Virginia. It's the Just Bernard Show with host Bernard Alvarez. Join Bernard as he shares topics that reveal the real matrix and empower your human experience, including world liberty, the esoteric, suppressed technologies, spiritual ascension, and human consciousness. Humanity has awakened, and our time has come to realize our full potential. And now, live from the Star City, your host, Bernard Alvarez.
Anyway, so let me tell you a little bit about our guest today. Selena Fox is a world-renowned pagan priestess. She's an environmentalist, a writer, a teacher, a women's rights activist, a shamanic psychotherapist. She's the author of Goddess Communion, Rituals and Meditations, When Goddess is God, Celebrating the Seasons, and other works. Her writings, chants, rituals, and photographs have been widely published in print and online. Selena has an MS in counseling from the University of Wisconsin-Madison and travels internationally presenting workshops and facilitating ceremonies, conferences, festivals, on campuses and other venues. And I understand she's going to be coming to Northern Virginia for the Samhain Festival by a local organization here. So without further ado, it's a pleasure to welcome you to the show, Selena. Welcome.
Great to be here. Happy Equinox.
Happy Equinox to you too as well. I guess this is a kind of a busy time of year for you, or is all the year a busy time of year for you?
Well, around the holidays and the seasonal changes, I do a lot of work in my travels, as well as at our center, as well as online. So it's great to be here as part of this fall's Equinox observances.
Yes, and it's so happy to have you for this time of year as well. Selena, for some of our friends that may not know some of the work that you've been doing, geez, since says here since 1974, my gosh. Is that when Circle Sanctuary was created back then?
Yes, I started Circle Sanctuary in 1974 around Samhain, which is late October, and I created it as a center that would bring together people from many different paths and perspectives and places who all had honoring the divine in nature as part of their spiritual path or philosophy.
Wow. Wonderful. And how large has the sanctuary become?
We started out with just a small group of people, and over the years, our core community is several hundred in size, but the reach of people that we connect with has greatly expanded, especially in the 90s as we started a web presence, and then within the last decade as social media has also become a way to be able to provide services. So we're providing services for people in more than 70 countries around the world. We have publications, we do podcasts, we put on events, and we have quite a bit of information on the web, not only at our website, but in associated social media sites.
Oh yes, I know that. I've been watching you for years, so it's such a pleasure to have you on today. With that being said, and as far as the nature preserve, have you guys maintained a large chunk of land to keep it pristine?
Yeah, we started our nature preserve back in 1983. It's 200 acres It's in the rolling forested hills of southwestern Wisconsin. It's about an hour's drive west of Madison in south central Wisconsin. And we have events there. We also have a green cemetery there. We had people visiting us not only from the Midwest area of the U.S., but we had people coming from many different places throughout the U.S., and we get international visitors as well.
Oh, I bet. And I'm very interested. I was very interested to hear about the Green Cemetery. What is a Green Cemetery?
A green cemetery combines an old burial practice with contemporary needs to preserve green space. Natural burial is burying cremains or burying a body that has not been embalmed, and the remains go back to the earth.
Mm.
So if we could look at our ancestors, go back to the Paleolithic, earliest times of humankind being on planet Earth, what type of burial practices were around then? Pretty much the body went to the earth. Sometimes there were flowers, ochre, some objects, grave goods might be put with the body, and the body was either put in a mound or put in a grave dug in the earth, or if cremation was practiced. And some peoples in some parts of the world have done cremains as a preferred way of returning remains of a human to the earth.
Mm-hmm.
Then those are scattered or they're buried. And we have both options available at our cemetery. And the reason we have a green cemetery is that we think it's really important to not only live life sustainably, but in the final part of our life, as we cross over into that other world, that our remains are returned to the earth in such a way that it sustains life. When you think about it, many people really emphasize healthy living, healthy eating, and avoid putting toxic chemicals in their bodies. Why then, once a person has died, would that body be filled with embalming fluids, which typically are very toxic,
Mm-hmm.
and then put in a container that doesn't easily biodegrade, if at all, and then put in a liner of concrete or fiberglass into the earth? Why not go back to ancient practices and have the body return in a natural container, a shroud or a pine box, some other container, and just let the body go back to the earth and be food for shrubs, for grass, for trees, microbes in the
Mm-hmm.
soil, and to have cemeteries that really preserve nature.
I couldn't agree with you more. That's one of the topics I've really had an eye on, and I've seen so many other organizations trying to come up with similar types of green burial. Now, are is the circle, is it called Circle Cemetery or Sanctuary Cemetery?
Yeah, Circle Sanctuary is the name of the nonprofit organization. Circle Sanctuary Nature Preserve is the name of our land, all 200 acres, and 20 of that 200 is Circle Cemetery. That's the name of our green cemetery.
Oh, okay. So is Circle Cemetery available to only the members of Circle Sanctuary, or can other people contact you to perhaps have the remains put there?
We are open.
Oh, wonderful.
People do not have to be a member of our organization in order to have themselves, at their death, be buried there, or a loved one. We ask that people have a philosophy that's compatible, which is honoring nature, a respect for nature. And people that really want to support what the vision is, which is to preserve the green space and to have a cemetery that is helping to move greening the end of life forward, not only in the United States, but around the world.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Wonderful.
We have people, from a number of different faiths, philosophies, throughout not only Wisconsin, but other parts of the U.S. Right now, the cremains and the full-body burials are all from within the U.S. We have looked into having cremains come from overseas, transporting bodies across international lines is more complicated.
Yeah.
And we have some people looking into that option, but right now we're pretty much accepting remains from those within the U.S.
Oh, well, that's great to know. And that's something I will have to consider myself. I have to get rid of my my family plot and look forward to an alternative for my departure from this planet. Hopefully not too near in the future, but
well, hopefully you will live long and prosper.
Yes, absolutely. But so Selena, I'm very curious, and again, I've been a practicing I don't want to say pagan, but nature spirituality person. I guess I would fall under the umbrella of pagan, wouldn't I? Uh, I've been practicing pagan spirituality, gosh, for 20, 30 years now, and you were one of the names, of course, back in the day when I was getting involved, and I'm very curious what brought you to the path. Is it something that was innate within you that brought you to nature spirituality? What brought you to this type of work?
From a very early age, I felt a real attunement to nature as part of my, I guess, core being. So in a way, I'd say there is an innate dimension to it. I look back in my earliest parts of this life, you might say that I was kind of a nature mystic. I continue to use that phrase to describe some of my ways of being with nature. When I was a teenager, I became aware of the great diversity that was in beliefs regarding religion, and I had been part of a Christian church when I was raised, but parallel to that, I also was doing nature meditations and nature rituals on my own. I did not see that they were not compatible. For me, they were.
Right.
But in my late teen years, I recognized that I really did have to define myself and recognize that the calling I had to serve, to do spiritual work for others, really wasn't going to work as a Southern Baptist. First of all, I was female, and it was not really an option back then for women to serve as ministers.
Right.
And I also wanted to be outdoors. I wanted to celebrate in ancient ways, and I started calling myself a pantheist. And then a few years later, I started embracing the term pagan. And as a term that, capital P on pagan, as a grand umbrella term, basically meaning nature spirituality practitioner.
Yep. And from there, I guess you continued to follow the path, and it all unfolded before you.
Right. I was doing a lot of work on my own in those early years, not only as a child, but as a teenager, young adult. And in my 20s, I started practicing with other people and became a priestess of a number of groups. And out of those experiences, I founded Circle Sanctuary, also
Wow.
known as Circle.
Wonderful, wonderful. And speaking of the celebrations and the spirituality, I wanted to talk a little bit now about the equinoxes and the solstices. One of the major aspects for me as a practicing pagan nature spirituality person is aligning with the cycles of the seasons and understanding, the greater wheel of the year, the greater wheel of of humanity, which I'm going to talk about the next show. But how do you see how these celebrations are an intricate part of this path?
Well, for me, celebrating the seasons is really a core practice, and it can take a variety of forms. By us as individuals connecting with the environment in which we are, and as part of that connecting, having an awareness as well as a celebration of being part of that much larger system of life, not only here on this planet, but in the universe. By having some regular celebrations for that, it keeps us in touch with the environment of our locale, of the places where we are, and it really helps balance us as we go about our day-to-day life. The calendar that I work with has not only the equinoxes and the solstices, but the midpoints of each of the four seasons, which are sometimes known as the Celtic fire festivals or the cross-quarter days.
Right.
And the solar festivals of solstices and equinoxes, wherever you are on the planet, those festivals are celebrated. In the northern hemisphere, of course, you've got summer solstice happening as winter solstice is happening in the southern hemisphere, and in like fashion with the equinoxes, as we go into the fall or autumn equinox in the northern hemisphere, which will happen tomorrow, it will be spring or vernal equinox in the southern hemisphere. So there are some things specifically connected with the season aspect of these holidays. But with the equinoxes, you also can see some things that will happen regardless of whether you're north or south in the hemispheres. And one of those is the theme of balance.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, day and night are pretty close to being equal in length. And having this as an opportunity to mark that transition, not only to welcome the season from the place where you're at, but to really have an opportunity to do some spiritual reflections on bringing greater balance into your own personal life, as well as being part of a process to bring balance and equality into the larger world that we're part of.
Oh, beautifully said. Absolutely. And as far as, well, I guess I'm going to reflect on the northern hemisphere since we are moving into the autumn equinox here. Um,
Yeah.
we're also looking at a time of harvest, isn't we consider this the second harvest festival? I would think with Samhain being
That's
the
right.
last.
Yeah, those of us who are celebrating the 8 seasonal holidays, the beginnings and midpoints of each season, there are 3 harvest festivals. One that starts at the beginning of August, Lammas or Lunasa, the first fruits of the harvest, and then as we go into fall equinox, this is the celebration of abundance. And the last of the harvest festivals in late October, bringing in the rest of the harvest, Samhain. So for this holiday, the Fall Equinox Harvest Festival, I sometimes call it the Pagan Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm.
And not only do people who are following nature religion paths rooted in ancient Europe and the Mediterranean have this as a tradition, but many people involved in nature-oriented traditions will do harvest celebrations, sometimes of a particular kind of crop, sometimes it's a series of crops that are all available in an area. And even people that may primarily do hunting and gathering will give thanks for the bounty of nature at this time. In American Thanksgiving, which is in November, not only are some of those practices from old paganism incorporated, but some of the symbols. And the symbol that you'll see widespread in November, regardless of what people's religious or spiritual orientation might be, the Cornucopia actually began as an ancient pagan Thanksgiving and harvest symbol.
Oh, very interesting. And yeah, I've always wondered, what was the material of the original cornucopias? Was it a horn, or were they literally made of natural fiber?
Well, there's, in classical art, sometimes that cornucopia is shown in a woven sense. It's woven in a basket form, but sometimes out of metal. It looks like a metal, and some of it actually looks like a horn. And if you go back to the ancient Greek myth, it was a horn, a bullhorn actually, that had been used as a horn of plenty that was filled with flowers in one version of it, filled with food in another version of it. And today, cornucopia take a lot of different shapes and forms, but most of them have kind of a curved horn piece, and they're filled with fruits and vegetables. Some people put flowers and nuts and other produce in them. And I really think it's wonderful to have cornucopias as part of Thanksgiving celebrations, be it pagan Thanksgiving with fall equinox or the American Thanksgiving that happens in a couple months.
Mm-hmm. And I'm so glad you mentioned Horn of Plenty. I was wondering if that was where it came from as well.
Yeah.
I guess it all wraps around the idea of abundance, as you were talking about, the abundance of the harvest, and what a wonderful way to celebrate it. Absolutely. And what are you going to be doing any celebrations? I would guess you are at the Circle.
Yes, we actually do a series of celebrations. This past weekend, we had our Welcome Fall celebration. And a tradition I started many years ago is to actually have a very large cornucopia as part of our main community ritual. And during the ritual, each person brings some item from their own gardens or from a local farmer's market, some symbol of the season, some fruit, vegetable, nuts, grains, flowers, and puts it into the cornucopia during the ceremony while giving thanks to the sacred for abundance in our lives, not just things that we may have come to us in our gardens in our local areas, but the blessings that have come into our lives in the past year. Today, I have already done several personal Equinox celebrations, and meditations, reflections, and then on Equinox itself, we will be sharing chants and information with people through cyberspace. We have some information up at the Circle Sanctuary website under teachings. You can go to my Celebrating the Seasons book that's online and get some information about personal rituals and celebrations one might do.
Oh, very good. Very good. I was going to ask you that. We're coming up on a commercial break, and
now, back to your host, Bernard Alvarez.
And welcome back to the Just Bernard Show here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. We are here today with Selena Fox discussing the Equinox that is coming up, as well as her work at Circle Sanctuary. Selena, before the talk, you were mentioning a book of rituals that people can find on your website.
Yeah, Celebrating the Seasons, and it's a work in progress as I do various podcasts. I create chants, I create meditations and rituals. I get them to our web people, and we have them available so that others can get some ideas for creating personal and community celebrations.
Oh, that's really good to know. As I'm preparing to do an Equinox celebration for a local organization here as well, as I put it together, I always need inspiration. So I look forward to going there and seeing what's available. The importance of doing these celebrations. How important is it to you, Selena, for us to align with the changing cycles of the seasons, and why is it so important for us as we attune with nature?
I think attuning to nature and aligning with seasonal changes is really important on a number of different levels. On a personal level, physiologically, it keeps us in balance with the environment around us. Taking a walk in the woods, out in a field, experiencing the change. So often, especially in more contemporary times, humans have been spending a lot of time in human-created spaces, our homes, office buildings, places of commerce. But by actually getting outside, especially in places with a lot of greenery and creatures, songbirds, we hear the sounds, we have the sights. This can really help us have a healthy, more relaxing way of being with the world. Just having natural environments as part of our rhythms can help lessen the stress. On a psychological level, being able to take a break from the daily routine and to do some kind of celebration as the seasons change can also give ourselves a boost. I think from a planetary viewpoint, having humankind get more in touch with the environment is really essential, because by having that kind of connection, we increase our awareness of how much we are part of the environment that is around us and within us. And hopefully from that perspective, we will find ways to work together to have more sustainable ways of being on the planet.
Oh, yes, yes, absolutely. I can't help but feel that, I don't know, maybe in the last, well, I guess in the last 100 years, there's been such a disconnection with society from nature, to the point where it, it's very interesting to actually know people that are afraid of nature. It's gotten to the point where people are afraid to be in the woods because of a bug or a noise they hear. And it seems that we've separated so much from the natural rhythm of the earth.
I think too often nature is seen as a kind of backdrop to human activity rather than a community that we are part of. And you think about it, 100 years ago, America was still largely agrarian.
Yeah.
Many people were still living out in rural areas or in small towns. But as the Industrial Revolution has had its changes, increasing numbers of people have moved into urban areas, and you can be in some urban areas and see the steel and the concrete and not necessarily a whole lot of greenery. Greenery can be very much in the minority. Certainly, some changes have happened within the last several decades, in particular, with the emergence of Earth Day, the very first Earth Day in 1970. There was an awareness that humankind really does need to get back to the garden, to really start taking care of the environment, because we started recognizing problems with air quality, water quality, the problems of having toxins go into our soil and how that was impacting us. And now there certainly are more people than ever before being aware that human activities can really impact not only our immediate areas where we're living, but that larger system of life that we're part of. So I think celebrating the seasons, regardless of whether one chooses to be a pagan per se as part of a spiritual path, is healthy. In fact, some of the research about stress in human life have found that just a 5-minute walk outside of a building, being out, breathing in the air, connecting with trees and other vegetation can really help reduce stress. And that's why there's, within industrial psychology, there's movements afoot to have more green spaces around corporate workplaces, so that those who are working in these large buildings can actually take a break during their lunch hours and other places and actually get renewed and refreshed. I think as humankind continues to become aware of the interface that we have with our environment, it is my hope that we'll find better ways to work together to conserve water, to clean up the air, to stop the toxic dumping in our oceans and our waterways and the earth, and when it comes to energy, to find sustainable ways of having energy, to work with more solar and wind, geothermal. I'm excited to see the changes that are happening as people look to green life.
Yes. And there's so much of that happening. I can't express my gratitude for living in the time that we're living. And yes, we have a lot of problems, but at the same time, the consciousness just seems to be expanding in such a way where, like you said, more green consciousness, more consciousness of alternative renewable energies is coming to the forefront, and it's not considered, hippy dippy. It's not considered, fringe society philosophy. It's now coming to the point where for me, it's almost as if people are reconnecting with their inner being and realizing how important this is.
Yeah, I agree. One thing about the equinoxes in particular, there's a tradition that at equinox time, if you seek to bring about a change within your own life, this is a powerful time to do it. It's a time for not only personal evaluation of self, taking a look of how things are, but what one might want to do as one moves forward in the next part of life's chapter. So I think that in addition to decorating our homes to reflect the autumn that's coming, having some time to enjoy nature and to experience the change of seasons, to welcome the seasons for those who are in places with the full seasons. This is also a time to do some inner work and to put forth some intentions about some aspect of ourselves that we want to have happen within our life, bring about some greater balance and time to start a new project, a time to make some resolutions to have, I guess, a greater connection with the sacred as one experiences that. So I think equinox can be a time of gratitude, giving thanks for what we have, and it's also a time to repattern ourselves and to move ahead and bring more happiness and joy not only into our own lives, but to see how we can contribute to that for others.
Here, here, and that seems to be what I like to be a common theme of many of these equinox celebrations for me. I noticed that as I'm preparing a ceremony or something, that we have that time to reflect. We have that time to repattern, and what a great time to do it. It's almost as if it gives us the opportunity, as you said, to step away from the day-to-day grind and rethink and reimagine and well, rebuild and rebirth in many ways.
That's right. And I do think there's value in welcoming each of the four seasons into our lives as we go about our daily rhythms. By welcoming in the fall, we can embrace it, get prepared for it, and welcome in the winter, welcome in the spring, welcome in the summer. And by seeing it as something to look forward to, fall is a beautiful time in with colored leaves and with many of the fields with ripening grains, and I know apples are coming into their own in the orchards in Wisconsin, and it's just wonderful to be outside. The smells of autumn,
Yes.
the crisp breezes. What a wonderful season. I ended up in this life coming in to the world in the fall. I was born in October, and I do enjoy autumn as a time of year. I enjoy the whole cycle of the year, but there is something special about autumn and Mother Nature giving us a colors show in the forest and the fields.
I have to agree with you. Before moving to Roanoke, I spent most of my life. I've only been in the Mid-Atlantic now for 5 years, and before that, I lived in Miami. And we did not have the change of seasons. We did not have green. We did not have the beautiful colors. And one of my favorite things I love about the fall, and I know everyone's like, a lot of people complain about it, is literally why we call it fall. The leaves, all those leaves, when the wind blows and thousands of leaves just blowing around, falling off of the trees. It's like it's snowing leaves, and I find that to be so beautiful and very attuning for me, to see that.
Oh, it is wonderful. Well, and you're right. Not all places have these four
Oh
seasons. So
no.
what do you do when you're in a place where you are in a kind of eternal summer? Well, you still see the changes in the amount of light that
Yes.
happens in the daily cycle. So I know for folks that are in places without the seasons, what becomes more important is that balance of light and dark, day and night. One of the things that I like doing at equinox time is watching the sun rise, watching the sun set, to be in that in-between time known as twilight. Yes, there's pre-dawn twilight, just as there's pre-night twilight.
Yes.
And in that twilight time, to do meditative work, to reflect on self, reflect on planet, to bring oneself in alignment with the sacred that one has as central to one's spiritual path, be it pagan or some other form of spirituality, to connect with that source, to celebrate that source, and to make time to receive guidance.
Oh, very good point. Very good point. And I do believe that we can receive it in those quiet moments. Absolutely. Many of us feel we have to look outside of ourselves where many times the answers are right within us.
That's right. I know some people like to do some form of divination at equinox time, and
Hmm.
whether that's done with meditation and paying attention to images and messages that come intuitively, or whether it's done using some type of a tool, such as working with oracle or tarot cards or runes, done reflectively, that can be a wonderful ceremony and meditation in of itself.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yes, sirree. And speaking of a ceremony and ritual, I know it's fun to decorate in the autumn for me because Samhain's around the corner, and I get to start. I become a 5-year-old kindergartner again,
Well,
and
I think it is great to let that younger self within us be with us throughout our whole life. And I certainly look forward to Samhain as well. And I celebrate the Halloween as well as the Samhain.
yes, yes, me too, me too. The how shall we say it? The Americanized version and the spiritual version, absolutely. But with that being said, it's very interesting how the fall and I'm not sure if many people understand this connection, how the fall and the leaves dropping is and Halloween or Samhain is that energy of death and rebirth, and there is so much fear within that, and I feel that these type of acknowledgments kind of remove that fear and help us to understand that there is a cycle that continues, and that we never end the cycle.
That's right. And certainly in autumn, as I took my nature walk this morning, shortly after dawn, I can see that the ferns along the hillside have shifted from their vibrant green of the summer. They're yellowing now. I see that the smooth sumac berry is a plant that a number of Native American peoples have used these berries to make a drink nicknamed Indian lemonade, essentially. But the leaves of these shrubs have gone from green to vibrant red in many places, to start seeing those hints of color around, and knowing that some plants are dying back and the seeds are being released. So in death, as the vegetation dies back, there's also life. And the seeds that will bring about new plants in the spring are being deposited, and not only right where they are, but some creatures will get some of them on their coats and, take them further off around the area. So, and the winds will carry some of the seeds. So there is a whole seeding process that happens at fall equinox time and beyond, which really serves us well in 6 months as life awakens again.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And it does. It certainly does. Selena, we're getting ready to run out of time. And I often ask my guests if you knew that you were speaking and the entire world was listening, what would you say to everybody?
Take time out to be with nature around you, whether you're in a city, suburbs, a rural area, but to think about yourself being part of a whole community of life. Appreciate that connection, send love to that connection, and to enjoy the life that we have, and to share that enjoyment, that love, that appreciation with others around.
Hear, hear. Blessed be. Absolutely. And Selena, thank you so much for taking the time out during this equinox season, festival days here, for joining us. You are going to be here in Virginia, and I just want to let everybody know you're going to be at, geez, I forgot the name of the forest that you're going to be at.
I think it's Prince William.
Prince
It
William.
is Hallowed Homecoming, the first weekend in November. And I'll have some information at my main Facebook page, that's Selena Fox Updates, and we'll have it at the Circle Sanctuary website, www.circlesanctuary.org. You can, access my SelenaFox.com website. It's linked with that, and I'll be probably putting stuff out on Twitter and Instagram about that event, but I'll also be celebrating in cyberspace. And tonight I have my own podcast, and I'm focusing on equinox magic. So whether you're in the northern hemisphere or the southern hemisphere, some things that you can do to bring in the equinox.
Oh, that sounds great. And they can tune into that at SelenaFox.com?
There you can go to the Selena Fox Updates on Facebook,
Okay.
and you'll see a link there, or you can go to Blog Talk Radio, and the Pagans Tonight Radio Network has some links there. The name of my show is Nature Magic, and it's followed by Circle Talk, which we also sponsor. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. And everybody, stick around for the next show from a medium's perspective, where I will be joining medium Tracy Lockwood. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Happy